Tonight, struggling to stay afloat as the cost of living continues to climb.
A new vital sign report is out today looking at the cost of living, and we're asking, how are parents affected?
Honestly, everything comes down to a balance sheet. If you buy more or higher quality groceries, you're going to have to cut costs somewhere else.
I'm Arlette Lazarenko, and I'll bring you that story.
The politics of identity policies. MUN has a new report, and it may be challenging for them to deal with.
This report is basically useless, and definitely should be shelved.
I'm Mariana Kelland, and I'll have that story coming up on Here and Now.
As if a running race wasn't hard enough, some extreme runners in the province have found a way to make it harder. The first ever Paradise Backyard Ultra is coming up this weekend. I'm going to tell you what that is later on.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. Single parents in the province are struggling to keep up with the cost of living. That's according to a new report out of Memorial University's Harris Centre. Here and Now's Arlette Lazarenko takes us through the numbers and how it looks through the lens of a single mother.
The increasing cost of living means this mother of four works more than one job. Her main job is here, in a lab at Memorial University, but she has two others.
It's a lot of stress, to be honest. It's a lot of things to consider all at once. I could cut family expenses, recreation, quality of food, but honestly, that's just not an option for me. So my solution is to work more. And right now that has me working quite a bit, but it's entirely worth it. Quality of living for my family is my utmost priority.
Her youngest is 12, so her kids are more independent, but more work means less time together.
If you work more, you're taking away time and energy and affection from your kids to provide something else. If we had a more affordable cost of living, obviously a lot more options would be available to parents and a lot more benefits available to their kids.
Today at the Harris Centre was the launch of the 2024 Vital Signs Report. The focus? The cost of living and the struggles it causes.
We've seen an increase, a huge increase in the number of food bank visits across the province. And housing is also an issue, and the affordability factor for people there, it's essentially meaning that your dollar is not stretching as far as it used to, and incomes are not going up to really keep pace with the cost of living.
The statistics are grim. More people in the province are experiencing food insecurity. Numbers jumped from 19% in 2018 up to 26% in 2022. There were more than 15,000 visits to food banks in the province in 2023. 23% of people using food banks are single parents. The report found that 31% of people in the province are struggling to meet their basic needs. 20% of people are experiencing housing insecurity.
When you're in the grocery store and you're thinking about, do I buy this or do I buy this other thing that's cheaper, or do I kind of hold off on making this big purchase? For parents, a lot of the time, it's not a decision that they're really even able to make without also then choosing to provide or not provide for their child. And it really kind of puts that much bigger burden on parents in this day and age.
Alloway says one solution: help parents with money.
Obviously, subsidized groceries, subsidized housing options would be critical for our community. If those were available, I think you'd really see an improvement in the overall function of our kids in school and our families and in our greater community.
As prices continue to rise, Alloway and parents like her are forced to work more, to spend more on the basics. Arlette Lazarenko, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, a resident of the province's new transitional housing facility in St. John's says it's not what she was promised. Kathy White says she isn't getting the help she needs at the former Comfort Inn, and she's preparing to leave. Here Now's Mark Quinn reports.
I'm a mother of four and a grandmother of four children.
Kathy White was living here at this tent encampment. She says she was visited by government officials who offered help. And now she's one of 11 people living in the provincial supportive housing facility at 106 Airport Road.
When I was in Tent City, That was a community in a home. They made false promises. John Abbott, Fred Hutton visited me in my tent. They told me if I took shelter, they would provide transportation for my injuries, for myself, make sure I had clothing and what I needed. I've been up there since May the 3rd. I've seen no support workers.
White says the provincial facility is not at all what she expected.
But I don't feel no support system from who I'm dealing with at the time. And neither does my community, my family, my friends who they ripped me from at Tent City. I have a mental disability, I have physical disabilities, I have no footwear, I have no support, I have to eat on time. I feel like I'm on parole.
The minister responsible for housing said he can't comment on an individual case, but he said the province is working hard to make a transitional supportive housing facility that gives people what they need.
There's security on site. There will be social workers on site. There will be occupational therapists. There will be nurse practitioners during regular hours, obviously, for the medical team. There's going to be a family physician. The harm reduction team is going to go in there. There's going to be counseling as well for either addictions, grief, mental health issues.
White says that hasn't been her experience, and she doesn't expect she'll stay.
It was supposed to be like a home, just a place to stay with a roof and a shower. Well, I can get that at Pippy Park, and I can definitely get it down at the Pen. That does not make it a home.
Hutton says it will take time to put all the required staff in place. He said that months from now, this facility will offer wraparound supports and a comfortable place for as many as 100 people to live. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Seniors Advocate is launching a social media campaign to try to change people's perspective about aging and combat ageism. June is Seniors Month, and the Advocate hopes to gather and highlight personal stories about seniors. People are encouraged to head to the website Seniors Advocate NL if they have a story to share. The Advocate says data is still lacking when it comes to the hardships seniors face in this province, and with 1/4 of the population over the age of 65, the Advocate says hearing about those experiences is valuable information.
Seniors are being abused even by their own families. And this is often tied to the fact that, oh, Nanny lived her life. Oh, she doesn't need this house. She doesn't need that money. These are all ageist views. Seniors are a very proud group, right? They have worked really hard to support themselves and their families and give back to this province. And as a consequence, no one wants to say, oh, now I'm 80 and people are treating me like I'm a child, or are dismissing my views and wishes, or because that's hard. That's really hard. That's a hard thing to think about after you've been, you've lived your life and you've given, and you've been lots of times been leaders in this province.
Well, who is Indigenous and who is not? In this province, the answer depends on who you ask. It's political, emotional, and now Memorial University will be tasked with deciding who it considers Indigenous after receiving an independent report aimed at rooting out false claims of Indigenous identity. The CBC's Ariana Kellant has that story.
The report lays out the groundwork for identity policies. MUN hired First Peoples Group to do consultations with Indigenous groups and to make recommendations. But the university stresses they're just that, recommendations.
We need to determine the best course of action going forward, but we have made no decisions yet. And any decisions that we do take will be through the full process of consultations and policy protocol development.
The report recommends verifying an Indigenous collective if the feds and other Indigenous groups recognize them. The stakes are high in getting it right. Identity policy will determine who can and cannot access Indigenous scholarships and jobs. Right now, the university works on an honor system of self-declaration.
We need to come up with some kind of protocol because during all of the process, we actually have Indigenous students applying for Indigenous scholarships. We have Indigenous faculty teaching Indigenous subjects.
What's clear from this report is that there is a wide spectrum of opinion. Some feel the university shouldn't police identity at all and that it's colonialist. Others say to not verify is, well, colonialist. But the biggest elephant in the room, a lack of consensus over which collectives should be included at all.
This report is basically useless. Useless, and definitely should be shelved.
Nunatuva President Todd Russell says the process was flawed at the outset when he says the VP Indigenous told him his people wouldn't be included in an Indigenous roundtable.
And what we have seen now in this report is basically a backing up of that position that was taken by Memorial University. And so there is ample evidence, obviously, in the report of this bias.
Nunatuavut says it represents about 6,000 Inuit in central and southern Labrador. Innu Nation and the Nunatsiavut government have for years disputed those claims and the legitimacy of the NCC's Indigenous status.
It is about politically pandering.
Those issues that you refer to are not just the university's issues. In fact, you could argue they're not the university's issues.
The big question, with such politically and emotionally charged debate, how can a university get it right for everyone?
Yeah, that's a difficult situation to be in. It's not just the one group. Actually, there's more than one group, and on the island, actually. And that's why it's not going to be a fast process. We need to listen to both sides of that argument.
Bose would not put a timeline on when such a policy would be developed. But MUN isn't alone, of course. It follows many other Canadian institutions grappling with these same issues, many getting similar reports, some who have also had their fair share of controversy with high-profile professors' claims to Indigenous identity debunked.
Obviously watching what happens elsewhere. We're also noting that things have not been perfect elsewhere.
In the backdrop, the last MUN president, who was removed over her previous statements about her Indigenous ancestry. There's over 1,000 self-identifying Indigenous students at MUN, on top of Indigenous faculty and staff, all no doubt watching closely to see who's in and who's out. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, students at Holy Redeemer Elementary in Spaniards Bay are being relocated for the foreseeable future. The province says the school is now closed after a chemical-type odor was detected last Wednesday. Starting next week, students in kindergarten through grade 3 will go to Bay Roberts Primary. Grade 4 to 6 will attend All Hallows Elementary in North River, while grades 7 to 9 will be at St. Peter's Elementary in Upper Island Cove. The province says there will be transportation in place for students. Holy Redeemer will remain closed while the department investigates the source of the smell.
Well, hurricane season starts next week, and it looks like it will be a busy one. Today, the Canadian Hurricane Centre released the forecast for the upcoming season, and it's the most active outlook ever released. Here's Bob Robichaud.
The factors that go into predicting hurricane season are all lining up this year. We have we're transitioning from an El Nino that tends to lower the number of storms in the Atlantic. We're transitioning from that into a La Nina, which tends to cause more storms in the Atlantic. However, we're also looking at record water temperatures in the Atlantic. As of now, the temperatures are more kind of what we see in, say, August than they would be in May. So the combination of record water temperatures in the Atlantic and a developing La Nina is really lining up to be an active season in the Atlantic.
Yeah, so what are the numbers? Well, NOAA has released the forecast, 17 to 25 named storms expected this year. An average of about 14 is what we typically see. 8 to 13 of them becoming hurricanes, and 4 to 7 of those hurricanes becoming a major hurricane, which would be a Category 3 or higher. So The probability of an above normal season this year is about 85%. So some pretty high confidence there that we will see a higher than normal hurricane season. So those factors that Bob was talking about, we've got the La Nina, that is cool waters at the equatorial Pacific. That leads to less wind shear. Hurricanes do not like wind shear. So with less of it, that means that these hurricanes are going to be able to develop and strengthen. And with those near record warm tropical Atlantic temperatures, where those hurricanes start to develop, that's a lot of fuel for them. So if we do see this continue, which we likely will, it could lead to rapid intensification and some stronger storms. So typically, our hurricane season starts really to get going in September. 44% of the hurricanes that make their way towards our part of the province is in September. But the thing that I'm watching now is we've got a bit of cold water in the Atlantic basin there. That's below normal, what we would typically see. So if we do see that, it could weaken those storms as they make their approach. Now, what are the names this year? 2024 names, some of the ones you may hear this year could be Debbie, Nadine, and Valerie. Those are three of the names that we could be seeing. I'll tell you all about the forecast coming up.
Well, the body of an unknown Newfoundland Regiment soldier is coming home. Ceremonies today in France are all part of the process of repatriating the soldier's remains before bringing him to rest at the War Memorial in St. John's. As Here and Now's Heather Gillis reports, it's an emotional moment for those helping shepherd the soldier home.
This is the Commonwealth War Graves Commission's Visitor Centre in Beaurain, France. Somewhere inside lay the remains of Newfoundland's unknown soldier. This morning, Premier Andrew Furey, designated as his next of kin, visited the casket made with parts of Newfoundland birch that holds the unknown soldier. He was there with his wife and 13-year-old son.
Just incredibly emotional to realize the sacrifice that this young man made and the impact more globally of Beaumont Hamel and the First World War on our nation at the time. And to just think about, as a father, standing there with my son, the emotions that many parents would have felt in Newfoundland and Labrador at the time, left wondering, left waiting for word, left with the ultimate conclusion that their son wasn't coming home.
Frank Sullivan with the Royal Canadian Legion was instrumental in having the unknown soldier repatriated.
To actually going in and be able to tap the coffin and say, "You're going home, son." I can't talk. It's just too emotional.
We both broke down and had a good hug and a cry. And the weight and the gravity of the situation is truly overwhelming.
The unknown soldier was exhumed from a cemetery somewhere here in northern France on May 13th. His headstone, similar to this, will be placed at the Rooms Provincial Museum. This one will mark the place where he once laid for almost a century. In Monchy-le-Preux, a French village of 700, school children laid flowers below the caribou statue marking a former German stronghold, the site of numerous battles. The delegation from Canada and Newfoundland and Labrador laid wreaths and pictures of the fallen.
In April 1917, this is where 153 members of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment were captured. 166 were killed, 144 wounded, the second highest casualty rate next to Beaumont Hamel. But there were some successes here. 9 Newfoundlanders held off 300 enemy soldiers. And it's something that the town's mayor is still grateful for today.
Thank you very much, very much. And it's very important for the children understand the history of their village.
Anticipation is now building for the main event. But first, tomorrow, dignitaries are going to have a reception here before the unknown soldier finally ends up back in Newfoundland hands in more than 100 years on Saturday. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Beaumont-Hamel, France.
Well, shifting now to sports. A new $7 million complex is about to open in Gander after nearly 4 years and several delays. As Here and Now's Troy Turner reports, it could be a game changer for soccer and track and field.
This new facility has a FIFA regulation-sized turf soccer field surrounded by a cushioned 400-meter track and plenty of other field space.
Right now, it's still considered a construction site. The contractor is still remediating some deficiencies that exist that need to be corrected before they can formally sign the project over to the town, sign the ownership over to the town. But you know, we'll be that's happening in the very near future.
The $7 million project, with costs split between the 3 levels of government, has seen delay after delay since it was announced in 2020. The town said last fall that it would be ready before winter began. And just last month, officials said the opening was close.
Before we accept it, we have to make sure we're getting good value for money for the taxpayers at all 3 levels who you know, contributed towards it. And I think the contractor, you know, as a reputable contractor, wants to make sure they're giving us good value for money and that there's going to be a quality there that they're going to be proud of.
Despite the delays, the project was slightly under budget. This week, Council used some of the savings to approve construction and renovation of storage and change room buildings. Competition at the complex is scheduled for next month.
Our goal at the NLSA is to bring Gander and Grand Falls and whoever else is able to take use of those facilities into our higher level leagues. So they're not just playing in a tournament come August, they're able to come into our leagues in May and play all the way through and at the top levels in the province.
The Newfoundland and Labrador Soccer Association says the turf helps extend the season and reduces wear and tear.
Our hope is in central Newfoundland, which has had soccer for many, many years, but hasn't really crested over the hill of being the big sport. We hope this, when turf fields go in places like Gander, we will see a growth in the number of kids that play, adults that play.
It's not like there's one of these in every community, and one of the reasons we're building it is to make it available as a regional facility and to create opportunity for you know, whether they're recreational or competitive athletes, to be able to open up another avenue of active living and competition and training in sports that previously you haven't really had the opportunity to be exposed to.
Once this facility does open, the mayor says it'll be an important piece in the recreational offering of the town, and it will greatly increase the sports hosting capabilities for future provincial, national, or even international competitions. Troy Turner, CBC News, Gander.
Well, we've got some showers working its way across the province now, starting in the west, overnight tonight for most of the island. I'll tell you all about it coming up.
This weather update is brought to you by the Healthcare Foundation Home Lottery. The absolute final deadline is midnight Friday, June 7th. Order tickets now at hcfhomelottery.ca.
Ashley, a nice clear but cool day here in the east. You mentioned before the break that some rain is on the way for the west.
It is, yeah. Things started pretty decent out there right across the board, but now that rain has moved in. Let's take a look at where we sat temperature-wise today. Into the single digits, 7 degrees in St. John's, 10 in Gander. So you saw temperatures a tad warmer today, Badger at 12. The hot spot was Stephenville, 19 degrees this afternoon. And we've got those temperatures into the single digits up across most of Labrador and the potential for some snow. Take a look at what's happening right now. There's that rain I was talking about. Some of those showers making their way towards central Newfoundland at the moment as well. There are some heavier bands of showers associated with this as well. And really, this is going to continue as we head through tonight, mainly, well, for all of the island, really. But these temperatures staying into the single digits, like I said, means we could see some snow up across the Big Land. Temperatures down to 9 degrees in Stephenville at the moment. That's because you're seeing some of that rain. And temperatures will continue to drop tonight. There's that snow I was talking about. So overnight tonight, places like Happy Valley, Goose Bay, you may see some wet snow in the mix towards the coast, especially through the overnight. We could also see some wet snow. And maybe the tip of the northern peninsula, you could get into some of that. It really will depend on the ultimate track of the system. But overall, most of us will be seeing that rain through the overnight period. And then as we get into the early morning, I think that's when the best chance for the northern peninsula to see those wet flakes will be. As far as temperatures go tonight, anywhere from 3 to about 6 degrees for most, 2 to 6 degrees for most, with those winds out of the southeast for now. And up across Labrador, anywhere from about -1 in Nain to +8 in Lab City. So you are going to stay on the mild side up across the Big Land tonight. And then into tomorrow, the first half of the day is going to be showers. Really, you should just see some cloudy skies through the afternoon for the west and central, hanging on to those showers for eastern areas of the island. And then again, the potential for some wet snow towards the coast. Now, Lab West, you're going to stay fairly mild tomorrow, so this will all fall as rain, but that will change as you head into the evening hours as your temperatures drop. Then you start to get into the potential for some of that snow again. And then the west coast of the island, we're looking at that chance of showers moving back in through the overnight and into Saturday morning as well. As far as snowfall amounts are concerned, same thing as yesterday. It looks like most of the snow will fall where no one lives. However, there is a chance that we could see anywhere from 5 to 10 centimeters. Now, will it accumulate to 5 to 10 centimeters? Likely not, but like I said, it will be a wet snow. And some periods of rain could mix in there, but it is certainly possible. And as far as the rainfall amounts are concerned, quite a bit could fall through the overnight and into at least the first half of Friday. Could be talking about 20 to 30 millimeters anywhere from the west coast through to central and into Bonavista North. You could be seeing a little bit more than that, maybe upwards of about 50 millimeters, but generally between 10 to 20. That's a good bet through portions of central, the west coast, and then the Avalon, generally 5 to 10 millimeters of rain, so not nearly as much as areas through central. As far as the temperatures are concerned for tomorrow, we're looking at those southeasterly winds again tomorrow, a bit brisk, anywhere from 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Again, still looking at the potential for some showers for the south coast, maybe even a few rumbles of thunder if they make it that far. But as we head towards Clarenville, Bonavista, temperatures a tad cooler than that, only about 7 or 8 degrees through the day. Into central, you're looking at temperatures between 10 to about 13. Along the south coast as well, Twillingate only around 6 degrees through the day. So anywhere really along the northeast coast, still looking at some of those cooler temperatures. The west coast will hang on to temperatures in the teens, maybe even the mid-teens. Light winds, though, through the afternoon. The northern peninsula, again, the chances some wet flakes in the morning, but that will change over to rain in the afternoon. Overall, southeastern Labrador and the northern peninsula will be hovering around 4 degrees. You've got your onshore winds, easterlies, anywhere from 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. The warmest temperatures across the Big Land will be in Lab City at about 14 through the day. Again, winds not overly impressive, but they are out of the southwest, hence that warmer air, and then that cooler air towards the coast. We'll talk about the long-range forecast when I come back.
Well, there's not much happening today in Paradise Park, but that's all going to change on Saturday morning. And that's when 150 extreme runners are going to gather here to take part in the first ever Paradise Backyard Ultra. Now, what is that race, you're wondering? Well, that's when you have to complete a lap in an hour. And you keep doing that until there's nobody left standing. Now, if this is something that you didn't know about, let me tell you.
But I wouldn't so much call it a race. This is more of an endurance event. So time here, if you run fast, it actually hurts you because you have 1 hour to get it 4.167 miles done, which is 6.7 kilometers. If you get in and out in 30 minutes, because I know runners that can do that in 30 minutes, you have to sit and wait 30 minutes for the next hour to come. And then you start to seize up. So this event really is about how long can you go, how far can you push yourself physically and mentally, because what happens is everybody can probably get 2, 3, 4 laps done, but after the 5th, 6th, you get 10 laps, you get 15 laps in, your mind and your body starts to, want to rest. And for an ultra, like a backyard ultra event like this, we can see this thing going over 24 to 30 hours.
I'm going to be participating in the first Paradise Backyard Ultra. I'm quite excited for it, where normally I have to go other places to run big races, and this time I get to stay right here in Newfoundland. I go on the slower side, so I do a lot of fast walking and slow running, so I don't want to be faster than 52 minutes per lap.
A 6.7 kilometer loop in an hour isn't overly difficult, probably a 9 minute per kilometer pace. You can almost do that walking. It's easy until it's not. So the further you go along, obviously the harder it's going to get. But again, on the mental side of things, the race is really between the ears, how far you or how long you want to keep going.
I definitely believe that the mental aspect of races like this is the bigger piece. Like, the physical component is there, and you need to be fit, you need to be trained, but most of it is up here.
Paradise Park itself lends itself for activities like this and runs and fundraisers. We get requests constantly to use Paradise Park, and we're pleased with it. When we initially built it, this is why we built it.
You're going to see tents and set up here. You're going to see all kinds of people moving around, and then people would basically set up their tents to get in, so when they finish their lap, they get in, they can get new socks, new shirts, they can have little warm food, all that. So you're going to see people camping out here. This event's going to go well into Saturday night, into Sunday morning, and we have some runners here hoping to push it to Sunday evening. So imagine starting running on a Saturday morning at 10 o'clock and still going like lunchtime Sunday. That's going to be crazy.
So you can see quite clearly from the outset that this process was certainly biased and prejudiced against Nunatuavut, Inuit, and our particular participation.
Nunatuavut says a new report prepared for MUN is deeply flawed and is putting a major strain on its relationship with the university. More on that ahead. Returning now to one of our top stories, Nunatuavut says it has spent years building a relationship with Memorial University, from collaborating on the Arctic College to research relationships and funding for students. But the president of Nunatuavut says a new plan for how the university decides who is Indigenous is deeply flawed and biased. Todd Russell spoke with Ariana Kelland earlier today. Here's part of that conversation.
What are these biases that you've seen in the process?
Well, let me back up for a little bit. When the entire kind of process around Indigenous verification started to be talked about at Memorial University, you know, this was particularly about a year and a little bit ago. I think it was April the 12th in 2023, for instance. I had a call was requested by the VP of Indigenous, Catherine Anderson. In that call, she informed me that they were going to undertake a consultation process on an Indigenous verification process or what have you for Memorial University. And she informed me that Memorial University was going to set up a roundtable of Indigenous organizations to help guide this work, to help inform some of this work. In that same conversation, she informed me that Nunatuavut would not be invited to that roundtable, that we would not be considered an Indigenous group that should be consulted and involved in this very, very important work. So you can see quite clearly from the outset that this process was certainly biased and prejudiced against Nunatuavut Inuit, and our particular participation.
Do you believe that the university would ever be able to make the right call and make a decision that would make all Indigenous groups across this province happy?
Well, absolutely. We were actually strengthening our relationship with Memorial over the course of the last number of years. And then last year happened. You know, this Indigenous verification process came up. And this is where we started to take a preconceived and a position regarding NCC and Nunatuavut Inuit that was not previously their position. And so we asked, like, why is it that one day we're included for all of these things, rightfully so, and the next minute we're being excluded on this? So we can only surmise that this process, which has been led by the Office of the Vice President Indigenous, has been pandering to the political campaign by other Indigenous groups against NCC, and in so doing are trampling on the Indigenous rights and interests and the human rights of our people, Nunatuavut Inuit, and in so doing are causing tremendous lateral violence and harm. And it is happening. It is happening to our students. It is happening to our faculty. It is happening to our elders. And what the First Nations groups report that was commissioned and paid for by Memorial University is only inciting further lateral violence and taking positions that are unfounded, that have no backing and no evidence. And in fact, they have gone as far as to suggest criteria around Indigenous verification that is specifically designed and engineered to not include, but to exclude Nunatuavut Inuit. And any person who reads that report will arrive at the same conclusion, that in fact, this report is written in such a way that it targets and prejudices the rights and interests of Nuintuavut Inuit.
We went out the other day, it was 15 icebergs, the next day it was 12. I mean, even locally, we're looking around saying, I can't believe this, there's more. Just look, there's one over there, there's one there.
Well, it's a banner year for bergs, so says that tour operator. We head to the Great Northern Peninsula, where he can see dozens of them. That's just ahead. Well, for the past few weeks, we've been hearing from some tour operators who are saying they've been striking out this iceberg season. But on the Great Northern Peninsula, it is a banner year for bergs, and you can spot them off Coachman's Cove, Lumsden, Brighton. And Terry Henderson runs the Daily Catch Ocean Tours in St. Leonard Griquet. And Terry, thanks so much for chatting with me. So can you tell me, can you see any icebergs out there now?
Okay, well, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm sitting right here now. I can see one just about a half mile right there, right in the mouth of the harbor, we'll say, here in St. Leonard Griquet. So, yeah. So I drive it out. My house is about 3 kilometers from for my business here. So I've seen 7 while driving it this morning on the way to work. So yeah, we've got some serious amount of icebergs around.
So how would you say this year stacks up against the previous seasons?
Oh, we're way ahead of the iceberg count for us. So we were out there, did a tour a little while ago, and we counted 12. I mean, normally we get icebergs in the area. Sure, we know we always do, pretty well guaranteed. But you know, we'll get 4, we'll get 3, we'll get so. But this year, it seems like spring was a little earlier, and the icebergs came down, and they really came into shore. And like every little outlet, little inlet, I mean, here now, pretty well's got an iceberg trap everywhere you look. On the walking trails, you're going to get a good look. And our tours that we take out, you're getting an awesome up close and personal with the icebergs. So yeah, it's great. We're doing wonderful.
Now you say a lack of pack ice has actually made it for a more successful season. So can you help me understand what you mean by that?
Right, exactly. So what you got to understand, like, I guess you could use the saying that less ice is more icebergs. So a lot of times from the Labrador coast or from up north, we get this heavy sea pack ice coming in, and that traps along the shoreline, like typically from my experience here, let's say a couple miles, and it'll freeze onto the shoreline too. And then as that's there in spring, and these bays and outside here a couple miles full of the hard pack ice, well, that normally will, you know, the icebergs will stay outside of that and get caught in like the deeper tide rips, what we call them here, like a tide rip, a stronger tide offshore. So a lot of times they'll bring the icebergs just off in the distance. You maybe see them sometimes, and there's numerous to go by you never ever see. But now without the pack ice, they're really hugging the shoreline. This is why we went out the other day, there was 15 icebergs, the next day we've seen 12. I mean, even locally, we're looking around saying, I can't believe this, there's more. Just look, there's one over there, there's one there. And so, yeah, it's really just a massive amount of icebergs around. This is not something we're used to, really. So that many.
What about iceberg graveyards? What is that?
So we got like some small inlets here, for example, little small entranceway. When you get in, it opens up. So we got some places, a couple places along the shore here, from say Lanson Meadows to St. Anthony area and St. Clair Bricket, where there's a deeper cove. And say if the iceberg can line up, which is probably going to happen this year because we got so many of them, if it can line up just right, it'll go inside this little bay. It's got a narrow entrance. And now when it gets in there, well, then some locals have called it the iceberg graveyard, because that iceberg is there then just going from side to side and just kind of breaks up, pieces break off. We go visit it all the time through the summer. If it's the middle of July, middle of August, you want some iceberg ice, you go to where it's trapped. You know, locally we do that. And so, yeah, and then we can, it stays there then pretty well all year. We've had that happen.
Tell me a bit about your business and how significant is it to have a strong iceberg season?
Yes, because I've got the restaurant here, the Daily Catch restaurant. I've been in the tourism industry for the last 20 years. And like, if I could talk about how it developed over the years, there was a time I wouldn't open my restaurant until probably the first week in June in this area. And you'd close like the first week of September. But now, for example, now I think we're going to be like 6 weeks ahead of other years of business, because we've had people coming here in the first part of May now looking for icebergs, where things with early spring and stuff like that. So it's going to increase the amount of time that you have for business. And yeah, and we're just going to get a lot more travelers early on in those shoulder seasons, because in business, in this area in particular, I've always told people that are getting into business or that in business that I talk to, that don't worry about July and August. They kind of take care of themselves, because we're going to get visitors. You need to spruce up June, May now, May and June, and September and October. These are the ones you really need to focus and get some for business wise in a small town like this on a northern tip. Yeah.
Terry Henderson, thank you so much for your time. Good luck this season, and really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay, time for a look at the long range. We get to look at the weekend. How is Saturday looking? I really want to know.
The all-important Saturday forecast. It looks a bit wet.
Oh, okay.
Now,
But is it going to be kind of mild?
Yeah, that's the good thing.
Okay.
So that, we've been seeing some single-digit temperatures, but that won't be the case, at least for the first part of the weekend. Let's take a look at what's going on. So that area of low pressure is still going to stick around. So we will be seeing some showers as we head into, this is the wrong day. There we go. So we will still be seeing that area of low pressure stick around, though. That will be the story right through the weekend. However, through the afternoon on Saturday, there's a slight chance that we could see a break in the cloud cover as this area of low pressure kind of moves across the island. So if we do see that and we see some sunshine, it might actually turn into a fairly decent afternoon for at least a little bit. But the rest of the island looking at the potential for some showers. Same thing for southeastern portions of Labrador, even central Labrador, looking at the chance of some showers. But you are going to see some clear skies finally up across northern portions of Labrador. About 5 degrees though, so still chilly. Really across the big land, your temperatures are going to be chilly, but you'll see a break in the weather. As far as the island is concerned, northern peninsula, you're tapping into some of that colder air as well, but the rest of the island should sit between 9 to about 15 degrees. And again, the best chance of some sunshine will be where that area of low pressure moves in. So eastern, the Avalon really, and the Burin Peninsula potentially, and that's why I have those temperatures a tad warmer as well. Now, as we head into Sunday morning, that area of low pressure is going to start to depart. However, you're still going to see the chance of some showers through the day in northerly flow, and that will be the story along the northeast coast. Northern peninsula, higher elevations on the west coast. Again, you may see a few flurries in the mix there, and same thing for southeastern portions of Labrador. Clearing eventually happening, though, as we head through the evening hours across Labrador, and we may see some clearing as well for the west coast. The onshore flow means temperatures are going to drop back down again, 5, 6, 7 degrees. And then across Labrador, your temperatures start to rebound because we're sitting under that ridge of high pressure, anywhere from 12 to 13 degrees for central and western portions, but still the single digits towards the coast. Long range forecast dropping in temperatures through Monday. However, I keep saying however, I don't mean to say that, but Tuesday, 15 degrees it looks like. So we will see a little bit of a jump in temperatures with the chance of lots of sunshine through the day. And then for central Newfoundland, you're looking at that warm up as well. Look, 17, 19 degrees the beginning of next week. A little cooler for western Newfoundland, between 15 and 16 degrees with some sunshine. And then the northern portion of Labrador, at least the eastern portion of Labrador rather, looking at about 20 degrees by Monday potentially, dropping back down, but still nice as far as temperatures are concerned. But you'll see some rain move in for Tuesday, and same thing for western Labrador. This is one of my favorite things about this time of year. Puffins are hanging out in Elliston, and Gordon captured this great shot of that. So thank you so much for that. And if you have any weather photos that you would like to share with us, you can do that by sending them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
Oh, they are such adorable creatures.
They're so cute.
They're like cartoon characters.
I know, I love it.
Yeah.
It's hard. Are they even real?
I don't know. Well, I can't believe some flurries on the northern peninsula.
Yeah. You get that northerly flow that happens. Cooler air. Chances of flurries.
Yeah. All right. It's, spring in Newfoundland, so you never know when you might get a flurry or two. Well, that's it for us. Thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us.
Thanks.